Hello and welcome to another episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and it's great to have you here with us today. And whether you're listening as you walk the dog, or perhaps driving the car, running on the treadmill, or whatever you're doing, I just want to start off by saying thank you for being a listener. Our podcast is growing, and we need your help to continue growing because we want to get to help as many people as we possibly can. So if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, give us a 5-star review and a follow. That would be very kind of you and much appreciated. So with that said, on with today's episode. A couple of weeks back, it was episode 322, where I did a solo episode that I titled The Beautiful Chaos of Building a Team. Anyway, it was inspired by someone I was working with whose salon was in a really good place. All the staff were motivated, happy and busy. There were no bitchy attitudes from anyone, and the salon had such a great energy about it that even the clients were complimenting the owner on how they love coming to the salon, not just for the great hairdressing, but for the good time they have while they're there. Now, the reason I'm circling back to that now is that since that episode, I've had several emails from salon owners in different countries reaching out to me talking about the flip side of that situation and looking for a solution to their people problems. So look, there's not a one-size-fits-all answer, but there are multiple things that will help. And so rather than address each problem individually, I'll work through a range of things. And if you have these things in place, it will certainly limit the likelihood of those problems happening in the first place. And then I'll also look at some solutions to address the problems when they do happen. So back to the emails that I got. Every comment or question I got was essentially a people problem. And if you wanted to be even more specific, they were all along the lines of, how do you get people to do what you want them to do? And the second part of that question is, and when they're not doing what you want them to do, how should you respond? So where do I start? Well, if I was working one-to-one with a salon owner in a coaching capacity and this sort of thing came up, then after they've explained what the specific problem is, the first thing I would usually ask is, well, how did you set it up in the first place? Meaning that when someone starts with you, did you spend time onboarding them and giving them an induction into your salon culture and talk them through your policy or salon operations manual and go through their job description and talk about your salon values, etc., so that they know what's expected of them? You see, when I ask that question, how did you set it up in the first place? It's usually met with either a blank look on their face in that they haven't got a clue what that even means, or a sheepish comment about not having had the time. So that's a starting point. In fact, actually, it's not the starting point. It's probably the third point on my list. So let's do this properly and just go back a couple of steps. The first point is that as the salon owner, you need to decide what sort of salon you want. What is the vision that you have for your business? What sort of culture do you want? How will the business operate? What brand values do you want the business to have? Meaning, what's important to you? And that means spending the time to create the systems and processes that you want in place for how the salon should run. Is that an exciting thing to do for most salon owners? No, not at all. It's definitely not. But just because it's not exciting doesn't mean that it isn't necessary, because it is. When you put things in place like a vision statement for the business, a mission statement, job descriptions, KPIs and operating systems, etc., then you're defining the business that you want to have and how you want it to operate. Essentially, you're defining, this is how we do it here. And if you have all that in place, then you're starting to define and build a culture that you want, and everyone is then clear on what's expected of them. If you don't do that, then you're expecting people to be mind readers and understand what it is that you want them to do, and when, what, and how you want them to do it. Because until you decide what you want your business to be like, there's absolutely no chance of your team knowing and understanding what's expected of them. And so you have to begin by putting in the work of the business owner. And if you don't put the work in to create the vision, the structure, the systems, the training, etc., it would be like starting a football team but not explaining to the team what the rules of the game are, what position each player on the team has, and what the rest of the team are relying on them to do. So that then takes us into the second point, and that is recruitment. Because once you've started to define the vision for the business and put the structure in place that we've just covered, or at least some of it, only then are you in a place to recruit the team members that are a fit with what you want your business to be like. In other words, to look for people that share and are excited by your vision and values. And so whether it's in the initial advertising for the position or in the interview process, you can then tell them all about your business and how it works and what the culture is and what you want to create. And if they're a fit, fantastic. And if they're not a fit, that's fantastic too, because now you're not going to waste their time or yours. And wouldn't you rather know that at the beginning, as opposed to wasting 6 months trying to turn someone into the person that you want them to be? You see, for the right people, that sort of clarity and structure and vision for the business that you have that you're giving them, it gives them a sense of security and direction because you're setting them up to succeed. And so that takes us to the third point, which is the onboarding or induction process, where during the first week you spend time with every new employee for the purpose of getting them to know you and you to know them and making sure that they have a good understanding of how the business operates and what the rules of the game are. Whatever you do, don't just give them a printed out manual and a job description and say, here, read this. Because A, they won't read it. And B, even if they do, if that's your idea of a proper onboarding and setting people up to succeed, then we really do need to talk. That might have been enough 10 or 20 years ago, but it doesn't come close to what it should be in today's employment market. So that brings us to the fourth point, and that is feedback and communication. Now, feedback and communication comes in all shapes and forms, whether it's in the moment, one-to-one feedback, or regular weekly or monthly training sessions, or team huddles every morning, or regular team meetings once a week, or annual appraisals, or even just talking to someone, taking them out for a coffee and having an informal chat. Whatever it is, as the leader, remember the old adage that most problems are caused by communication and most problems are solved by communication too. So if all this is sounding like a lot of work, well, it is. But you opened or bought an existing salon, and with ownership comes a responsibility of leadership. And leadership isn't always easy. And most people, including me, when they open a salon, they go into it completely unprepared for the reality of what's really involved in making a business successful. Most of the points I've touched on so far are very much about what I refer to as systems and processes of management, the stuff of management. It's the organization and structure of business. And they are effectively what I sometimes call the tools of management. But there is another part to this, and that is the people skills, or sometimes referred to as soft skills or communication skills of management. And to succeed, you need both the systems and processes of management and the people skills of management. And if you're like most people, you're probably going to be more comfortable with one of those areas than the other. But to succeed, or for your business to succeed, you really do need to have both in place. Now that brings me to the fifth point, and that is that you can't be afraid to manage people. And I say that because for many salon owners, they want to take a hands-off approach and lead from the front and assume that everyone will just follow their example without you having to actively manage them. Now granted, some people need more managing than others. But as a salon owner, your job is to lead. Your job is to manage. And if you don't do it, then you can't complain about it when things don't go your way. But the reality is that people need managing to become the best version possible of themselves. And sometimes if people are no longer a fit, then those people need managing right out of the door. And that's okay too. Because some people won't be a fit with the way you want to take the business. But it is your business and it is your responsibility. And you have to be constantly evolving your business in the way that you think is best for the business, the clients, the team, and for you as the owner. But inevitably, sometimes there will be someone on your team that doesn't have that overview of the business that you as the owner do. And they may not like the direction that you want to take things in whatever way that means. So you often do have to make hard decisions, and sometimes people will push back, and sometimes they will leave, and sometimes if they have become part of the problem instead of part of the solution, then that's going to be a case where you're going to have to get them to leave. And that leads me perfectly onto the sixth point, and that is that you need to have change as one of your core values. Now, I don't mean change for the sake of it, but I mean change in that you as a business are always evolving and changing for the better. And you want people on your team that embrace change and not automatically resist it. Now, obviously, there'll be times where some people may not like the changes that you want to put in place. And so you're always balancing the change that you want with showing people why it's change for the better and good for the business. And ultimately, if it's good for the business, it needs to be good for everyone in the business. And oftentimes, some of the people on your team may not immediately understand or see the benefits of the change, because sometimes the results are immediate, and other times the impact of change takes time to come through, whether that's in the form of better results or a more efficient business or cost savings or whatever it is. It's like the analogy of going to the gym to get fitter and healthier. Whether it's the gym or a dietary change, they're both great examples of things that don't change overnight. It takes time. The change might happen overnight in terms of you changing what you eat or changing that you work out and go to the gym every day or 2 or 3 times a week. But the results of those change don't happen immediately. They take time before those results come through. And that's what it's like in your business, meaning that what has made you or your business the way that it is not the result of something that you did for a week or two. It's the result of who you are and what you do consistently and believe in as an individual and as a brand. I've had 4 salons in total. The first one I started from scratch. The second one I merged with my existing salon and I ran it as a school. The third one I bought as an existing business, and the fourth was a partnership. The reason I tell you this is that taking over an existing business was a very steep learning curve, because here's the thing, the team that are already in place have an existing culture. They have their way of doing things, and in all likelihood, it's not always the way that you will do things. And in this case, it wasn't the way that I wanted things done. But as the new owner, with all the legal and financial responsibilities that go with it, of course, you're going to want to make changes in order to make the business as successful as possible. And if you think that's going to happen without pushback and friction and resistance from the existing team, then think again. Now, of course, you probably don't want that. And so the smart thing to do is to sit back, at least a little, and see how the business currently runs. See what's working and what isn't working. What can you learn from the business? And then get the team on side as to why you want to make certain changes in whatever areas you deem necessary. Now, whether or not that's easy will largely depend on the people that are on your team and what it is that you want to change. Sometimes those changes might be around the way the salon runs, and other times it might be behavioural changes. And let's face it, like any other business, in any other sector, there will sometimes be behavioural changes that you want to and need to address. Whether that's a lack of teamwork or a lack of respect for each other, or more serious issues around bullying or a whole range of negative and destructive attitudes that can create a toxic environment in the salon. And if you're in a situation where that exists in your salon, and over the years I've had situations like that in my salons, then you need to confront it head on. You need to explain that it isn't acceptable, and if you don't change, there's not a place for you here. And as a business owner, you will learn many lessons. And one of my lessons over the years was that you can't change people. You can put them in an environment that encourages and supports them to change. But ultimately, you can't change them. But they can change themselves if they want to. But the problem is that they often don't want to change. And so instead, they'll spend all their time trying to change you, whether that is through confronting you directly or by undermining everything you're doing behind the scenes. And that's a bigger problem. There's a business author, his name is Jim Collins, and he popularized the phrase, I'm not sure when it was, but a long time ago. And what the phrase was, he said, first you need to get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and then the right people in the right seats on the bus. Now the analogy is that the bus is your business. You need to get the right people in your business. And you need to recognize that what might be holding you and your business back is that you have some wrong people in your business, and they have to change or go. And then you have to make sure that you have the right people in the right positions within your business. So before we wrap up, a quick summary of the key points. The first point is that as a salon owner, you need to decide what sort of business you want. The second point is recruitment. As a business owner, you have to recruit people that share your vision and values. The third point is that your business needs to have a thorough onboarding or induction process in order to set people up for success. The fourth point is all about feedback and communication. Remember, most problems are caused by communication or the lack of it, and most problems are solved by communication. The fifth point is that as a leader, you can't be afraid to manage people because it's your job to help them to become the best version possible of themselves. And that brings me to my sixth and final point, and that is that you need to have change as one of your core values. In fact, the Japanese have a word that is Kaizen, and it is a philosophy of continuous incremental improvement that involves all employees from the owner to the newest and most junior employee. The term Kaizen translates directly to change for the better, and it focuses on making small, ongoing positive changes to enhance efficiency, quality, and overall effectiveness in a business, regardless of the size. I think that's a great philosophy by which to run and build your business. Now, obviously, we can only touch the surface in such a short podcast as this, but as you probably know, we have a range of grow books specifically for salon owners and managers, as well as our one-to-one coaching programs and our online courses. So if you want further information about all those, then visit growmysalonbusiness.com to find out more about them, as well as see our free resources. So with that said, we need to start wrapping up this week's episode. So have a great week, and don't forget to tune in next Tuesday for another great episode. I'm Anthony Whitaker, and this is the Grow My Salon Business podcast. Until next week, bye for now.